Encounter is brought to you by the Broome County Council of Churches, where we connect compassion with needs as we inspire growth with dignity. You'll find us in special places throughout the community. For those who remain hungry, we provide meals. For those who are challenged, we build wheelchair ramps. We comfort those who are ill, minister to those who are confined, and we remain an advocate for change and understanding on behalf of every element of our community. Connect and inspire. Encounter the Broome County Council of Churches.
Well, good morning and welcome to Encounter. I'm your host today, Joe Sellepack. I'm the Executive Director at the Broome County Council of Churches. One of my favorite Psalms talks a lot about how nature itself proclaims the glory of God. My studies of Jesus seems to indicate that Jesus kind of fell into that same mold when he tells us to look at the birds of the air or the flowers of the field and watch them and see how they neither are anxious nor are they very, very afraid of for the future. They find their own peace and their own comfort within the providence and care of God, which nature kind of reveals to us. So I've always loved nature, and I think nature is something that we should pay more attention to, as well as steward better as God's creatures. To help us explore some of these ideas around nature and how nature can help us understand worship and praise is Kent Busman. Kent is the executive director of the Fowler Retreat Center in Speculator. Is it in Speculator?
Technically, it's in Lake Pleasant.
Lake Pleasant, but it's very, very close to Speculator in the Adirondacks. One of the beautiful areas of the country, and a place that I kind of look at as being a spiritual home for many different reasons. Welcome to Encounter today, Kent.
Thank you.
So what is it about nature? I mean, it's kind of interesting. You know, I was just reading this morning, St. Francis calling, the sun brother and brother moon, and he talks about like a fox as being his brother, or a goat, or other kinds of things like that. Is there something about nature that kind of wakens us to like a status of, or an internal compass toward praise?
I think in our tradition, focusing on nature in some ways is a way of coming home. Going back to our roots, our original stories, our creation myths are there, and we find that human beings are, in our original stories, are in the first one, we're created on that sixth day, right after the beasts are created, comes our coming into being, where God creates us in God's image. And in that first creation story, to be in God's image is to make space for other things to exist. That's what that whole first creation story is about, God making room for everything else to thrive. And so when we're created in God's image, we're created to image this God that allows the other to thrive. In that first creation story, in the second creation story right after it, we're created, we're formed, from the dust, right from the earth itself. We're the Adams.
The earth, yeah.
Adams from Adamah, right? We're Adam isn't so much a name as a description.
Right.
And so when we begin to remember that we're part of this whole organism, part of this whole mystery swirling around us, I think we do begin to find our voice in that great choir. You mentioned St. Francis, and we sang yesterday, All Creatures of Our God and King, which are based on that brother, sun, sister, moon prayer, but of everything has a voice, and we add our voice to that. And so when we go back to nature, we're coming into our roots, humans from the humus. We're coming back to who we are created to be, and I think that brings something alive in us, and that maybe sparks that remembrance of what it means to be in the image of God as ones who are to protect and preserve the other creatures.
It would seem to me like that. I always loved Rudolf Bultmann when he would talk about us being homesick for Eden, and that homesickness is something that drives us into nature. But then on the other hand, it seems that we also have a tendency as human beings to want to see ourselves as being better than nature too, or to subdue or conquer nature as being something that, instead of finding our place within it. How does that enter into our what are the results of that struggle, I guess, is a and especially when we're thinking about like our politics and the rest of that kind of thing. How does that enter into that discussion?
Well, the whole subdue part of thing, the result of that is 23 species were taken off the endangered species list last week and put on the extinct list. We'll never hear the ivory-billed woodpecker or the Bachman's warbler again, because we've understood subdue as to destroy or use only as we would see fit. In the context of that original story, when God subdues the water, God makes space for the sky. When God subdues the water again, suddenly there's room for earth to be. And then where God subdues the chaos, allows everything else to thrive. And so, yeah, we plant gardens, and I subdue the weeds so that my tomatoes can grow.
Right.
I make decisions about what trees to cut and which ones to leave, partly because I need firewood and partly because these trees are crowding out others. And there are, we are cursed with the ones to make choices, or blessed, depending on what you want. We've used that as a curse for the rest of creation. We have made that our job. We've used scripture to cloak ourselves in some sort of faith language to allow us to pillage and burn and destroy. I don't understand how people who are created in God's image, who have this connection to the earth, who have all these psalms and all of these prophetic visions of clapping trees and dancing hills, how we could so easily and blithely just destroy them for our own misuse. It seems a terrible offense to the Creator.
Well, and a terrible offense to other voices that are trying to praise the Creator too, it seems.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kent, you are the executive director at Camp Fowler. Do you want to let people know a little bit about what Camp Fowler is and what it does?
Sure. We're lovingly dubbed the Funky Hippie Jesus Camp in our area. We're a place that we steward 247 acres along Lake Sacandaga, up outside of Lake Pleasant, Speculator. And we're primarily a children's camp. We'll have 600 to 700 kids who come up for a summer. And our goal is to say to them, what if we took Jesus seriously? What if we took these scriptures seriously? How would we live? We would start the day with a sense of God's presence, and then we would live in that presence throughout the day. And so it affects the food we eat. So we bake almost all our own bread. We make our own food so that it's not over processed and things, because our food affects our mood and how we feel. And so and then the leftover food is composted, so that we have gardens that are growing, and we have chickens then in the summer that give us eggs, not as many as we could need, because there's a lot of hungry kids there. But we try to model a lifestyle that is based on hospitality, that if you show up, you're welcome. And I don't care if you're straight or gay or bi or anything. I don't care if you're Christian or non-Christian or Muslim or Jew. I don't care. Get in the canoe. Let's go. Let's focus on our what brings us together. We are a place that doesn't sell well because we don't have a high ropes course or a blob or jet skis or those things that I don't have no desire to entertain children. I want to engage them in wonder and awe. And some of the best things we do are storytelling and star watching. We're a place that tries to model how to care for the world, and how to teach some environmental principles. Some of these things that the prophets, the old texts tell us that if we destroy the planet, we destroy ourselves. And that when we do things well, the earth thrives. And so, how would we do that? So we're a wonderful little subversive agency trying to get kids to live a life of faith that is more than I'm going to accept Jesus, therefore I'm saved, therefore I don't have to worry about anything. That's not the direction we choose to go with ours. We're not here to quote save the kids. We're here to engage them in a God who already loves them, who already loves this world, and we've seen that story in Jesus. And so that's what we pivot around, the Christ story. But there's room in that Christ story for everyone to be in. So there's a lot of laughter, a lot of singing, some of them really silly songs, and some of them deep, rich songs. And we allow kids to be kids. There's no technology for them. There's no phones. There's no computers. They're never in front of a screen. Think of that. Kids who've been in front of Zoom screens for a year and a half,
Right.
Not being there, and they develop these little twitches because they're not in front of the screen. It's delightful.
Then you get them engaged in nature too, and they find probably, that some of the things that they had thought about as far as anxieties and fears that were prevalent within all that Zoom relationships and stuff like that are kind of fade away. My wife does what she calls an immersive walk with her English classes, where they have to leave their technology behind them for 30 minutes, just 30 minutes, and then write about their experience. And many times they come away saying, I couldn't handle, not having my phone in my hand. And I can't imagine what it would be like for them to be out somewhere for an entire week without having that social connection that they find through the phone. It would be very scary and frightening for some people at first. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, and the parents are the worst. Because we're now in the post 9/11 era, well into that. We're into the era of fear, where everyone is afraid of everything, and there's some legitimacy to that, and we take that real seriously about how do we keep these kids safe and protect them and all sorts of things with all our protocols. And some of it uh, the anxiety. Our nurse this summer said there are more anxiety meds this summer than ADD meds. And a third of my staff, my young adults, are on anxiety meds this summer. That just breaks my heart. And one of the ways to combat that is to have these immersive experiences, to know that if I'm not on Instagram, for a day, the world keeps spinning, and the people who are my friends are still my friends. I don't have to be. So one of the things about camp. Here's the secret to camp. Anybody can run a camp. Here's all you need to do is you need to know the Shema. Love your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, right? And then love your neighbor as yourself, right? Jesus says that. So camp is one of the very few places in our children's world where they are all together. Their body and their head and their heart and their soul are all in one place, because if I'm on the phone, even now, I don't know where I am. Am I here or I'm with you? Or I'm not even sure where I am. But when you're at camp, you are only in one place. These hiking trips that you take and I take, that we take these kids out on week-long trips, some of them go out for a week in the woods, are so powerful because they can't be anywhere else.
Right.
Other than where they are. And wow, that's we took that for granted as kids. In this generation, that is a radical new understanding of what it means. And then you could begin to, I don't know what they do, wrestle with their demons, understand that they're going to be okay. There's lots of stuff that goes on, but I think your wife is really on to something with these immersive walks. We need way more of those things.
Well, it's interesting because when I came back from doing a hike with you, we were out on the Northville Placid Trail, hiking toward we did only a third of the trail, but it was still a long weekend in 30 miles or close to it in that period of time. And one of the things that you had us do when we were going on this walk was to read Henry Thoreau's book, or little essay on walking.
Yeah.
And she uses that with her kids. She'll have them read Thoreau's thing on walking and talk about, well, what do you think it really means to saunter? And kids will, they'll come back with, I saw a bird, and that bird was, hopping around looking for worms, and it found a worm and it ate the worm. And I found myself thinking about, how that worm was and how that robin was. And it becomes a conversation between them and the world around them in greater ways than if they just were looking at it as another duty that they have to do in order to get a grade or something like that. So, I love that, and I love that essay that you had us read. So, what is sauntering? How could a person in our viewership, how could they get involved in sauntering?
Well, first off, it looks like a map of the Appalachian Trail behind you. Is that what
that
is?
It is. Yeah.
There's a good place.
That's my that right there is my. I want to do it. I haven't ever done it. I want to do it at some point, but I will have to wait until I'm between jobs, and sometimes that takes a long time to get to, right? So anyway, but it's on my dream. My dream is one of my dream wall. It's I don't know. I think of sometimes when I'm beginning a project, I think I'm at the bottom or at the top of the Appalachian Trail, and I'm walking along it, and it kind of gives me hope that I'll reach the end at some point. So
great. I hope to do some of it with you. I think sauntering is I would say is needed in our culture for our kids. in particular, but all of us. But when I look at what we have our children do, it's so much of it is production oriented. You work out because you're playing soccer or you're football or in any of these sports, which are good in their own right, but that's not. Sauntering is that holy walking, as Thoreau says, that sense of being present in a place, not having a goal per se, but to just be present, passing through. And isn't that what the psalmist really are saying to us? Be present, and maybe you can hear the trees, clapping their hands. If you're really present in this world, we can maybe hear the mountains, leaping for joy. Maybe also we can hear the cry of the poor. Maybe also we can hear the silence of 3 billion birds missing. That was just reported a few months ago. We don't know where they are. They're gone. We can hear the fact that from in our lifetime, over half of the wild things have disappeared. In our lifetime, they're just not there. Those voices are going silent. If we take the time to be present, maybe then again we can reclaim the role that was given to us, not as the image of God, not as to be kings and queens of the planet, but to be what's the image of God? It's to be a servant. Isn't that Christ?
Right.
To be a servant to others, to offer ourselves for the world. And that's not, I don't know why that's not our message. Because it feels like that's exactly what Jesus did. It feels like that's exactly the model God gave us. It feels like all of these things lead toward that. So that's what we're trying to lean toward.
One of my favorite Psalms says, "I look to the hills from whence cometh my help. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth."
Psalm 121.
I love that. I love that Psalm. And one of the reasons I love it is because when I go up on top of a mountain, when I'm looking at the world around me, when I'm seeing myself on, in this grand scheme of creation, I know that creation is bigger than myself, and it is also more vibrant and will outlive me. There's something humbling in that, but there is salvation in it when I find myself on the top of a mountain and I realize that I am only a speck in this history that has created this mountain. It allows me to be human. It says that the world is much bigger than my own fear, my own place within it. So how do you, and your children and the children that come to Camp Fowler, it was funny. You gave us these little stickers that says, I heard the mountains calling, and I have it I still have it on my refrigerator, hanging up by a wall, with a magnet. So it reminds me that I need to go to the mountains sometime and remember that the next grant proposal isn't going to be the death or the life or whatever. It is a piece of a larger scale puzzle, and that my life is part of a great choir of praise that's going on around us. So what do you think of that? Like, how do you awaken within kids that sense of mystery and awe that comes from being on a mountain?
First off, that's a quote from John Muir. The mountains are calling, and I must go.
And I must go. Yeah.
That's a beautiful quote from a beautiful writer, and I think I think we need mentors. I think we need the kids need guides. there's a number of studies that are out that when we were kids, and I'm talking about in the 1960s and 70s, we had basically a 3 or 4 mile radius that we could safely go and so we could explore, and that radius has narrowed down to the house that the kids in is a safe place for some of them. So we need mentors, we need opportunities for kids to get out, to be present. We need more English teachers that take their kids for 30-minute walks, because they're going to be better English writers if they do that. We need parents and coaches. We need fewer sports teams and more outdoors clubs, in my mind. Not to dismiss sports teams, but on sports, you have to play a function. When you're outdoor, you discover who you are, and your role within the larger thing. And so we need fewer church services inside and more worship services in the woods. We need to recapture before it's too late. These sorts of things.
My guest today has been Kent Busman. We've been talking about nature and about his camp ministry at Camp Fowler, and about how children really do need an immersive experience within nature and with the holy that we find within nature itself. And it seems to me as if Camp Fowler is one of those places where grace can be found, and we can find ourselves within nature and find it to be a sustenance and a place that we all can enjoy and love and walk in. So thanks for being on today, Kent. I'm so grateful for you taking the time to be on Encounter today.
Thanks for talking. Thanks, appreciate it, Joe.
And for all of our guests, I hope you would be good and gentle with each other today. Have a great day.